Hi again, folks. This is Jacob from San Diego, presenting now my second lesson here on YouTube from LDS Gospel Principles Manual, Lesson 37. This is designed mostly for people who are just getting to know Mormon doctrine now, whether they be new members or people who are investigating the church. So if you have any questions, feel free to email me at webmaster@allaboutmormons.com, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. So to start off, today we're talking about the Mormon concept of family life. What are the responsibilities and roles of the different parents? One important thing to emphasize is that in Mormon thought, both the father and the mother, both the husband and the wife, are of equal importance. The husband is not considered more important than the wife, nor is the wife considered more important than the husband. The purpose then of parents is to work together for the spiritual, emotional, intellectual, and physical needs of the family. As I think back over my own childhood, think about my parents, truly they were equal partners in raising me. My father provided a wonderful example of a man who was impeccably honest and who is dedicated to deep thinking. And my mom is just well, let's just say my wife calls her a celestial person. She's like an angel on earth. When I think of the countless hours she spent talking me through problems I had as a teenager, and her patience and her love, truly she also had a fantastic contribution to the development of my personality and my ideals. And I'm very grateful for both of them and for the way they took on that responsibility of parenting and raised me as best they could. Truly, the person I am today is largely because of their great efforts. So some of the specific responsibilities that parents share are to teach their children about the gospel, also to teach them to pray, and to teach their children to obey Jesus Christ and the commandments He's given us. In parenting, it's a difficult challenge. You need to find a balance between not being too permissive, but then also at the same time not being too domineering. I think either of these extremes can be a dangerous combination. I recently came across a video of an example of a parent who was a bit too permissive. It was a commercial that passed in Europe, and I'd like to show you just a few excerpts here. I'm sure many parents can sympathize with the child throwing a tantrum scenario, but it was interesting to notice the reaction of the father. He just kind of threw his hands up in the air and said, "All right, I'm just going to let the child run amok in the supermarket." So I thought that was a very interesting example of a father who may have been just a bit too permissive, although I can certainly sympathize with his plight. He's quite a child. At the same time, though, it's very important that we don't be too harsh, too controlling of our children. I think that one of the fine examples of harsh parenting can be found in this TV show Wife Swap. So here's some excerpts from that TV show that I think show sort of the opposite extreme.
Have been sentenced to life.
Elena.
A life of serious hard labor.
Sweep the floor real quick, and Elena, you be ready to start mopping as soon as he's done. There is not time to have fun in this house because things always have to be perfect. What's up, my family?
Jennifer spends no quality time with 9-year-old Elena, who lives a solitary life.
I watch television alone because that is the only time I actually have for myself. I need you to go get ready for bed, okay?
When they say, "Mom, do you want to do this with me?" she'll say, "No, I'm watching my program. Why can't she just record it or something?" The last time I got to play with my mom was when I was little.
Why were you playing outside in the new clothes that I just bought you? Don't do that again. Do you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
So this is sort of a heartbreaking example of a parent who perhaps is a little bit too strict. I think it's excellent that she encourages her children to do chores, but when she becomes so harsh and so strict that the children aren't even allowed to have fun, and she doesn't even spend any quality time with their children because they're so occupied with doing chores and such, I think that's going to the opposite extreme. And so really as parents, we need to try to find a balance between the permissiveness that we saw in the first video and the sort of excessive demanding that we saw here in the second video. So what are some other responsibilities that parents share aside from trying to find this balance? Well, parents need to teach by example. You know, there's such a vast difference between teaching by words and teaching by example. I think both have their place, but when children see parents actually on their knees praying or serving in their community or studying the scriptures, well, that means so much more than just being told to do those things. When we learn by example, it seems to stick. Also, parents should show love and respect for each other. Of course, no family is perfect, and this can be challenging, but those families that really strive to create a loving home, to show respect for one another, they're the families that I think have the best chance of raising good kids. Talking about love and respect for each other, this clip was taken from a commercial I recently saw.
And the ref's just tuning him out. Boy, where do you train to take a beating like that?
He said, when's that porch gonna get painted? And that litter box! It's been 3 weeks!
So I think this video illustrates well perhaps a parent who's not created an environment of love and respect in her home. And unfortunately, I think few families are quite this far gone. But it's very important that we create an environment where our spouse and where our children want to be. Another important thing to remember, that both parents should remember, is that each family member is a child of God. And I think this gives a very unique perspective. We have these children that come into our lives, and our inclination might be to think of them as sort of inferior. You know, they're just getting started on life, not even potty trained yet. But when we remember that, in fact, they are our brothers and sisters in the sense that God is the Father of all of us, well, that gives a whole new perspective. Rather than taking care of this annoying little brat, we're sort of partners with God in raising one of His children. There's a C.S. Lewis quote. I just love C.S. Lewis. He talked about the fact that there's no ordinary people. There are no ordinary children. Our children aren't just our children. They're also children of God. C.S. Lewis said, "There are no ordinary people. You have never talked to a mere mortal. Nations, cultures, arts, civilizations, these are mortal, and their life is to ours as the life of a gnat. But it is immortals whom we joke with, work with, marry, snub, and exploit." And so thinking of our children in those terms of not just ordinary people, but children of God, children who have the possibility of after death going on and progressing and becoming one with God, I think that puts parenting in a wonderful perspective. Now, despite parents' best efforts at teaching their children, sometimes kids just go wrong. Even when children go astray, parents should continue to help them. I think of, again, my own childhood. I tried to be a good boy growing up, but I'm sure I gave my parents some grief from time to time, as all children do. And they never abandoned me, never gave up on me. I really appreciate that. There's a wonderful story from the Book of Mormon about a man named Alma who was the son of a great church leader, a great religious leader. Unfortunately, he decided to rebel against his father and set out to destroy the church, going from group to group, going from people to people, to try to persuade them not to believe in Jesus Christ. And Alma's father, despite what I'm sure was a great temptation to just sort of turn his back on his son, he nevertheless prayed to God and asked that his son would help him. And as the story goes, God sent a messenger to Alma and encouraged him to change his heart and encouraged him to once again follow God. And Alma did eventually repent of his sins and once again became a good person and a good son. And so I think this story from the Book of Mormon is an excellent illustration of the importance of not abandoning our children, even when it seems like they've gone off the deep end, even when they're out preaching against God, preaching against Jesus Christ, or perhaps more common, their actions may preach against Christ's teachings. But we still shouldn't give up on them. We should learn patience from Alma's father, learn patience from God the Father, who is certainly patient with all of us, and try to support our children even when they go astray. All right, so up till now we've talked about sort of the combined responsibility.